to 3Q, where I interview industry professionals for just 15 minutes by asking three powerful questions. I'm your host, Rachel Vogel, and joining us tonight is a very special guest and fellow Ithaca College alumni, Suzanna Slavin, Senior Vice President of A&R at the independent record label Mom+Pop. Susanna actually began her career at Mom+Pop as an intern, where she eventually transitioned into a full-time position, working alongside founder and co-president Michael Goldstone. Since joining the label, she's played a vital role in the signings of Australian producer and multi-instrumentalist Tash Sultana, Grammy-nominated electronic artist Tycho, Chicago-based band Beach Bunny, and indie R&B artist Evan McIntosh. Susanna holds a strong presence in the industry, so we are very lucky to have her join us. Susanna, thanks for being here. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I am good. It's middle of the week, so just chugging along.
Yep, getting through it.
Getting through it, exactly.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad that we have you. So without further ado, we'll just hop right into question one. Imagine for a second you're sitting down with your 25-year-old self. What one piece of advice would you give her on a personal note? And what one piece of advice would you give her from a business perspective?
Okay, so I guess this might sound a little corny because I think, but ultimately it applies to, I think, both my personal and my professional life. And that is to embrace and trust your journey. I think it's so easy to get caught up in the craziness of our day to day. It's just so important, I think, so many times to take that step back and be grateful for where we are and what we have. Obviously easier said than done, but I try to remind myself of that, especially when I'm going through, a turbulent time or I'm doubting myself, because yes, we all do.
Of course, yes.
And, I also feel like when I was younger, I'm still young, but a young 30. But yes, I feel like, when my folks would tell me to savor your youth and savor being in this time because it goes really fast as you get older, I'm fully understanding that now. I feel like every birthday I'm just like, oh my gosh, how did I get another year older so quickly? But anyways, I guess, the takeaway and advice I'd say to myself would be, to really live presently and enjoy that ride. And, all of our lives have its own path and its own agenda, and, what's meant to be will be.
Definitely. Very well said. It's funny that you said that about your parents, because actually very recently I was having a conversation with someone about the same thing. And I'm only about to be 23. So yeah, I'm feeling the same way. I'm like, I should listen to my parents. They're always right.
Or,
You definitely
they've always
realize
got wise, wise words and advice. Yeah.
Definitely. Awesome. Moving right along, let's dive into question two. Every industry has its dirty little secrets, and we both know that it's no different in the music industry. And sometimes people think that's a bad thing, but that is not always the case. Sometimes they can be quite good. What's one secret you would like to share with our listeners about the industry or A&R specifically?
Okay, so this one stumped me a little bit for whatever reason.
That's what they all say.
Hard question. But I was actually talking to one of my dear friends who also works in music about this actually, and she reminded me of something that is incredibly relevant, which is this industry is a lot smaller than you think.
Oh, for sure.
And by that, I would say be respectful and kind to everyone. It costs you absolutely nothing, and in the long run, it pays off. You ultimately never know who may be your next important relationship or where someone might go next, or if you'll need a favor in the future, honestly, someone who might even be your boss one day. So it's always really good to keep, good lines of contact and be really respectful and kind to everyone that you meet. And I'd also say, just be yourself. People can see through it when you're not, and ultimately I think you'll feel a lot more confident in yourself and in your relationships.
For sure. That's great. That's a great perspective. So already at our third question, I said at the beginning, it goes so fast.
Yes.
So we're already at the last one. So throughout your career, I can only imagine you've been asked a lot of questions, whether for industry conferences, the media, or even a promotion. But throughout all of those interviews and all of those questions, I'll bet there was one that you have never been asked, but would have liked to. So, what is that question and what would be the answer?
Okay. Kind of surprised. I mean, granted, I don't think they would ask this probably at a music panel, but I guess the question would be if I didn't work in music, what would I be doing?
Mm, that's
And
always an
I guess,
interesting one.
yeah, totally. And I guess, it's changed a lot over the years. I feel like actually more recently I thought about it a little bit more. And not in like the grand scheme of things, just 'cause, like, I was just kind of thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, what
Mhm,
I guess would I do if I wasn't doing what I do, what I love now? And so I guess, things can evolve. But ultimately I think now if I wasn't working in music, I think I'd want to be doing something in relation to mental health.
mhm,
It's really personal to me and is really important, I think, also within the creative community. And so I think
mhm.
that, I don't necessarily think I'd be a therapist per se, but I think I'd like to do something that involves incorporating mental health with, artists, musicians, creatives, just in general.
Mhm.
And thankfully, I think it's being spoken about a lot more than it ever has been, which is great. But I think there's still
Yeah.
a lot of work that can be done. So yeah, I think I'd really just like to explore that more within, this business. And, I think this industry also has to be super cognitive of the fact that artists are human beings, they're
Mhm.
not machines. And like all of us, they're dealing with life obstacles and challenges outside of their careers. And if I can do my part now to, help by giving artists that space and comfort and knowing that they can take time away if they need to from their quote unquote job,
Mhm.
to take care of themselves, then I'm always going to continue to encourage that. So I guess, yeah, if not that, then I don't know, maybe something in food or interiors
Oh,
because I
food.
love creating. I love
Yeah.
furniture hunting. So maybe
Yeah,
that's what I
that's
would
great.
do.
Especially like piggybacking off of what you said about how it's kind of starting to be talked about, like mental health. I've definitely noticed over the pandemic, over the last like 2 years, that in the music industry specifically, it has been kind of being spoken about a little bit more. You've seen artists partner with mental health organizations and like offering free
Really.
therapy or talking about what they're going through. So I hope that that like expands more over the next
Yeah,
few years. So,
absolutely.
well, Susanna, it has been so nice having you on 3Q tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time for me and for everyone listening. And I hope that we get to have another great conversation soon.
Me too. It was such a pleasure. Thank you again for having me.
Of course. And to my 3Q audience, I know that you enjoyed hearing from Susanna just as much as I enjoyed speaking with her. So stay tuned for next week's episode of 3Q, a podcast where I interview industry professionals for just 15 minutes by asking three powerful questions. See you then.